Good afternoon and happy Saturday to everybody. My name is Corey Pujols. I am your host for Palm Tree Sports, brought to you by IE Sports Radio. Uh, your direct feed for all that is sports. Now, it's a beautiful Saturday here in South Tampa, Florida. 80 degrees right now, and there's a lot to discuss um, for the teams here in Florida today, and I'm kind of at a low energy vibe just because there's no college football really for our Florida teams. Two out of the three major teams are not playing today, so no Gators, no Noles today. Bye weeks for both teams. Miami did play today, however, I don't know if Miami wants to stay for this part. It was not very good for them. It was not. So we're going to go ahead and start, obviously, with college football due to the fact that there's not very much to talk about today. So, with that being said, obviously, Gators bye week, Noles bye week. They have a rivalry week later this year, final week of the season. So, it makes sense that their bye weeks are on the same week. So that's where that one goes. So we're not going to really dive into anything they have going on there. Obviously, their storylines haven't changed much due to this time frame off. So obviously that means a lot of rest, a lot of time for players to get healed, to get in better shape, better condition, and also get ready for this weather change that we're about to experience, especially with it taking place. This late in the season, of course. In Florida, for anybody who doesn't know or hasn't been to the state, we basically just have summer all year, okay, and then we have winter for about 3.5, 4 months, give or take, and that 3.5, 4 months is kind of a spotty first month between the end of October, a little bit of November, and then sliding into December. Of course, you guys have probably seen, pictures of people from Florida on the beach during Christmas or Christmas Eve. That's a real thing down here. It will be 80 and beautiful, or it might rain, who knows. Honestly, you never know down here. So point being though that that weather is perfect, for this time frame going into the rest of the season as the rest of the states start to get colder. So that's always a plus for us. Now, as far as Miami, okay, Miami had a rough day. All right, they played Duke first and foremost. Now Duke, they recently in the last decade or so, they've been a very a decent team in the ACC, to say the least. They've been, I think winning more than they're losing, obviously, which is always a good thing, especially when you're in a conference where there are a lot of, and I don't mean to say this in a hateful way, but obviously there are some mid-level teams, a lot of mid-level teams in the ACC, and what I mean by that is, at any given time, one of these teams could break out with the right recruiting class, right? If they were able to, spontaneously recruit extremely well, especially in the South, you could see some of these teams like Virginia Tech or, of course, Clemson all the time. So all these teams can perform well. Speaking of Clemson, for those who didn't see, they were in trouble a lot of their game, and they were able to squeak past and create enough space to win a game. And, I've always said this before, a Dabo Swinney-led team is going to be good. In this department, as far as Miami is concerned, they don't have anything going for them right now. Okay, so let's get into this real quick. They played Duke, lost 45-21. That's the first thing. So they got blown out. They scored more than double the points. My apologies, that Miami was able to produce. But that's not even the main storyline here. You can take your pick from these next two items, but I'm going to go ahead and say that this 8 turnovers is a problem. Just hear me out, okay? 3 turnovers is a problem, okay? What do you mean by that, Corey? Okay, so when you watch NFL football, right, one of the biggest things that you hear from players and from coaches and from announcers alike is that, hey, we cannot have this guy turning the ball over, okay? Turning the ball over is sequentially giving the game away, especially when you're in a scenario that you can win. Right? So Miami obviously was in no such scenario during that game. I think they had the lead for all of, a few minutes by scoring a touchdown in the first quarter, and then after that I think it was 17 unleashed in the second by Duke. So when you do that, you turn the ball over 8 times, bad things are going to happen. So bad things did happen. Speaking of bad things that happened, Tyler Van Dyke injured, left the game with a shoulder injury, right? So that goes also into the turnovers, right? So if you're not protecting your quarterback, how can you avoid the turnovers, right? I mean, think about it. If the guy's getting hit, if he's being pressured a lot, it's not like he's going to be able to make good decisions. Let's use an NFL example, right? Patrick Mahomes looks good, okay? Now, obviously, you ran, Justin Allen last week, and they had a really tight game there. But the point that I'm making is he's a phenomenal quarterback, okay? In the Super Bowl against the Bucs, the Bucks were able to make him one-dimensional, right? He wasn't, super maneuverable as he would normally be. So as a result, they were able to take advantage of that and force turnovers, right? So that's what they did. If you're gonna play football that way, then you have to, you definitely have to be able to, make sure that you're doing and producing on the other side of the ball. If you're not doing that, you can turn the ball over. So that's what happened with Miami. That has to be maybe one of the most frustrating losses, if not the most frustrating loss for the Miami Hurricanes in the last, who knows how long, to be completely honest with you. So hopefully you guys can right the ship, but it's going to be a tough one. All right, guys, it's going to be a tough one. You're missing your quarterback. Game plan seems to be kind of dead when, like I said, turning the ball over a record 8 times, and that's a program record 8 times, I state again. Okay, so it's not going to work. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll go ahead and start talking some NFL football. That's probably the bulk of what we have today, so we'll go ahead and get into that, and after that, I think we have a little bit of hockey to get into as well. There's no Rays baseball, so nothing to worry about there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, my name is Corey Pujols, your host for Palm Tree Sports, brought to you by iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal Sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' in NorCal Sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
Alrighty, you guys, welcome back to Palm Tree Sports, hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, brought to you by iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And we just covered some college football. Of course, there wasn't a lot there, so we're going to slide right into the NFL portion, which is going to be more or less the bulk of what we're going to talk about today. I know that's kind of a little bit normally the focus, but it's also, where we're at in the season is very pivotal for a lot of the teams who are going to start making the playoffs. This is where you're going to start having to play your best football, right? Especially going into November, you're going to want all the momentum as possible. A lot of teams haven't wrapped their division games. Only about a handful of teams have played their division games twice, basically, is what I'm saying. So, like, for instance, the Jags already played the Colts twice. And there were 2 other teams, if I'm not mistaken, have already played each other twice. So, with that being said, we are now in that portion where, almost every game matters, especially sliding into the playoffs. We're going to start to distinguish the difference between, the pretenders and the contenders, right? As it was stated back in 93. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the Jaguars. You guys have the Giants up next. That's not going to be a good look for you guys. Obviously, Giants are red hot right now, no pun intended. New York, Spider-Man, all that good stuff. The bottom line being that the Giants are 5-1. Did anybody see this coming? No, but I'll tell you one thing: they got Saquon Barkley. Okay, and I've said this before. The guy's a magical football player. Anybody who followed his career down in, or not down in, but up in Penn State with the Nittany Lions knows that he could change a game as soon as he get his hands on the football. So what you want to do is optimize those chances. But on the flip side of that, there's your answer to the game plan, Jaguars, as to what you're going to do to win the game. You guys have to be able to control the line of scrimmage. Make sure that you guys box in, okay, Saquon Barkley. Everybody has to stay home. Okay, you guys all have assignments on defense. Anybody who has played football, especially in a zone football setting, understands that collapsing the pocket and collapsing the ball is basically one and the same, right? If the ball is being handed off in the backfield, that's where you want to stop the play, right? So if the ball is reaching the edges, that's where you have to rush you. That's why linebackers like Devin White have made a name of it from going from one side of the field to the other. Same thing with Lavonte David, two of the best to probably ever do it when it comes to that standpoint. As a result, over the years, they have allowed some of the fewest rushing yards that you have seen in the NFL the last couple of seasons. But we're going to get to the Bucs in a little bit. Right now, this is about the Jaguars. Meaning, if the Jaguars are going to win the game, it's going to be very simple, right? You guys have to hold on to the ball on offense, limit the chances that the Giants get, right, to keep it a low-scoring game for them, right? And you guys are going to have to stop Saquon. You got to stop the backfield, but you guys kind of know where I'm going with this. Ask yourself, who's the better football player, Daniel, Saquon? We know what he can do with the ball in his hands. So, especially given that be the case, knowing that in the past that if you ask Daniel to carry a team to victory, that he has truthfully been unable to do that, right, over the course of his career. Now, I understand he's still young. But with that being said, that's something that you may want to do is make the young man one-dimensional, right? So, take away the run game. You guys lost to the Colts 34-27 last week. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was saying that I thought you guys could be the best team in that division. Over the last 2 weeks, obviously, you guys have not been able to prove that. The loss to the Texans was a stinger. This loss right here was a one-score ball game. Okay, it's a division game. So you guys are two teams that know each other very well. So that's the kind of thing where like that makes sense. Like as a football guy, you see these scores and you're like, they're division rivals. This is more or less the score to most division rival games, and I don't necessarily mean the 34-27, but the one touchdown, that's really where it comes down to. You make a couple of different decisions here, a couple of different decisions there, and maybe you win the ball game. That's the point. You got to get in the lab and figure out what those tweaks are, right? Especially against a team right now like the Colts, who we don't know who their identity is yet. We don't know if they're a good team, a bad team, if they're going to make the playoffs and then bubble out, if they're going to try to, direct line to a Super Bowl. Matty Ice is pretty old, but he apparently still has something in that arm of his. So these are the things that you kind of got to ask yourself, especially knowing that you guys aren't going to see the Colts again for the rest of the year unless some magical situation happens, y'all both make the playoffs, right? Like that Green Bay Chicago stint a couple years back when all Chicago had to do was beat Green Bay, and they failed to do that, and Green Bay won a Super Bowl. So, with that being said, you guys, those last two losses you can't let those two losses identify. You guys are gonna have to play better football coming up, and it's gonna start with the Giants. Obviously, Any Given Sunday was produced for a reason, because Any Given Sunday can take place, and it can take place for you guys. Obviously, you're the underdog going into this game with the Giants, so do what you guys can. Obviously, stop the run, hold on to the football, don't turn the ball over, and you come out with a win. It sounds simple. We'll see what happens, right? Next up, we got the Miami Dolphins. I've obviously been on the horn about the Dolphins since Tua got injured, especially since I watched the young man in college, and it just makes me ask the question, what are the Dolphins doing to take care of their own? We know that he was slated to start against the Steelers, and it still looks that way to be the same. He mentioned before that in that second hit in the ball game that he was unconscious when he got hit. Okay, not necessarily just when he hit the ground, but he said he got knocked unconscious before as soon as the hit took place. So that's a scary development for a young quarterback, and it's something the Dolphins may want to pay attention to, especially since it was something that came out of his mouth directly. With that being said, you guys have the Steelers up next. The Bucs just played the Steelers. Don't watch that game. There's nothing to learn from it. there's nothing to learn from, not a damn thing. And I'll be able to address that and talk about that in a second. Obviously, the Bucs are gonna get a roast. All right, so on here on this channel, that's one of the things that we do. We're gonna hold each other accountable because we're gonna talk about the accomplishments plenty enough. Can't tell you about how proud of this team that I am. But with that being said, as I'm a parent, and I understand that just as I can be proud of my child, that there are times where I'm going to be, not very happy with the decisions that they make, and knowing that they're young and still learning is going to be one thing, but we still have to give them those encouraging words of advice. These are grown men we're talking about, so we're going to use some stern words of encouragement and advice. So with that being said, The Dolphins have the Vikings. All right. Or no, just lost to the Vikings, I should say. My apologies. You're playing the Steelers, but you guys just played the Vikings. Now, the Vikings I think they're a really good team, okay? When they're focused, they're going to be hard to beat, period, the end. That's all I can tell you. That's all I can tell you. You got a really good receiver set up there in Minnesota, and obviously it wasn't going to be an easy thing knowing that you guys didn't have Tua for the ball game. And with the umbrella the way that it is right now in Miami, there's a lot of uncertainty with a lot of things. So I get that. I completely understand that. So hopefully this Steelers game, you know, this team they're feeling good, especially after the win against the Bucs. But it's nothing for them to be proud of because it wasn't so much that they beat the Bucs. The Bucs just played horrifically. You know, that's what it comes down to. So with that being said, don't pay attention to that game. Pay attention to a couple of games before that. Pay attention to that 38-3 game that they had up against when they played against the Bills. And you know, Josh Allen put a hurting on them. So watch that film study, see exactly what they did right. I'm not exactly sure if Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be starting for the Steelers because obviously he's a huge difference maker even with those defensive backs that they have that are out. But with that being said, the game plan for the Dolphins is going to be simple. Protect Tua. I'm not going to get into some large detail analytical thing where it was like with the Jaguars because the Jaguars have a legitimate shot. The situation here is very simple. You guys always have a shot if you protect Tua. Huh? I mean, he's already shown that. The guy he's been under criticism early on. He's crazy. Young guy. He's from Bama. He's got good coaching, okay? We just got to give him a chance to blossom. He's still young, right? Got to give him a chance to blossom, as everybody else has been doing for these other young quarterbacks around the league. So, with that being said, if you can protect Tua and let him do what he needs to do to help put, you know, Miami in position to win the game, and not just whether it be late or early on, just to be successful, right? You want this guy feeling comfortable whether he's handing the ball off or throwing it deep. So, and when he is, you guys win ball games, all right? Miami has the potential, all right? And defense is not to be slept on. So, you know, guys, just get out there. Obviously, shut the Steelers down on offense. Their offense is not. They have some stuff going on for them, right? You know, have a decent wide receiver out there. Claypool, as we saw last Sunday, guy was just clutch for them and able to come up with so many different, catches to extend drives and whatnot. And obviously, Mitchell Trubisky has some experience leading a football team. So when you put those two things together, it's like, geez, well, you know, you got the recipe to win a ball game. So that's what happened there. Now, as for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as we're going to slide on into them right now, so they're going to get a little bit of a roast, and there's a big reason for that. First off, the Steelers last week, my apologies, had a completely destroyed defense. All right, they were missing their best defensive lineman. They were missing their top 3 starting cornerbacks, right, from the defensive perspective, and obviously they were missing Minkah Fitzpatrick, right? So I'm saying all that to say this. The last time I watched a team lose a ball game like that was never. Ever. Against a backup quarterback. I mean, so hear me out. Mitchell Trubisky lost his starting job in multiple locations. Okay? That's the first thing. This guy has proven that he's a better backup than he is as a starter. The Pittsburgh fans have been calling for Kenny Pickett to come in and start. Kenny Pickett come in and starts, and Tampa Bay's got this guy looking like some chosen one from the Moses movie, okay? And the Prince of Egypt, that is. So it's like, what's the deal? What's going on in Tampa Bay that's allowing a team who's, again, down a quarterback, and then their starting quarterback, Kenny Pickett, gets injured, and Mitchell Trubisky comes back in and still leads them to a victory, okay? Again, I'm going to say this one more time because we need to let this sink in for a second. Top 3 cornerbacks, number 1 safety, and their best defensive lineman. That is beyond me. You're literally missing half your defense. You're missing half your defense, and you won a ball game against a team who was in a Super Bowl 2 years ago. My apologies. So there's a correlation in the frustration right now with what's going on in Tampa Bay. First things first. My biggest problem is the offensive line, okay? I don't care what anybody else has to say. You know, you've probably heard football analytics and announcers and, you know, people who have just overall been around the game for a long time say this. You think it's all about those skilled players, and it slightly is, but football games specifically, are won and lost in the trenches, Okay, you got to watch a lot of football to really learn that, right? Because, at first when you look at it, you're like, oh, the quarterback is so dynamic and the wide receivers and this, that, and the third. Okay, but really go back and look at football and look at the teams who win Super Bowls. They have great teams and great defenses, okay? That's usually the combination that takes place, more specifically on the defensive part, right? Because a great offense is a better defense, right? So, when you take that yin and yang, of that statement, and you apply it to a football team, you get, for instance, you get the 2000 Ravens, you get the 02 Buccaneers, you get the Legion of Boom with the Seattle Seahawks. You have all these teams, the 85 Bears. You have all these defensive teams that, jump out and they show you're like, whoa, this team did that. On defensively speaking, like whoa, okay, that's pretty impressive. That's the point that I'm making here. If you want to, play good football, you got to have a good defense. That's the first thing you got to have, obviously, besides a good quarterback. Now, with that being said, it didn't seem like we had any of that playing against Steelers. But the reason why the quarterbacking was a little bit in question is because, it's not like you can ask Brady, who's used to not necessarily being under fire, to just all of a sudden be expected to come under fire against, again, a team missing half their defense. I'm not saying Brady necessarily was taking them lightly, but let's call a spade, right? He did go to the wedding, okay, of Robert Kraft. Do I think that has something to do with it? Yes, I do. I do think that has something to do with it. You know why? Well, you miss a team walkthrough. You don't fly back with the team. And this is all a day or two, 48 hours before a game is supposed to be played. Against a team, against a coach, more specifically, all right? I'm a little hysterical here because obviously Mike Tom, he used to coach for the for Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in the day. Okay, so for those obviously who did not know that, that makes it a little bit more personal, right? Because this is a guy that we have a big history with, a guy that we are very excited for his success in the league, but also know just how good of a coach he is because he was with us before that gig. Now, with that being said, Tom also knows Mike. Tom is a very smart guy, and I'm not saying that he was taking him for granted, but when you make decisions like that, Puppy, that's all I can tell you. That's all I can tell you. That was not a great decision, and it showed on the field. It reflected with the team. Obviously, there were some passes. There were some times where there was pressure that was getting to him. I remember at least 3 times where pressure got to him, and it caused him to throw the ball in a manner that was less than what we're accustomed to seeing from Tom. Not saying that his arm is lacking or anything like that, but obviously these decisions are being hindered. And what is causing that? Well, when you have, and I hate to call the young man out, but we got to call a spade again. Now, maybe this is the coach setting him up. Maybe this is because everybody's injured. Luke Goedeke is not doing his job. Okay, he is getting beat, and I mean badly. It's just otherworldly, I have to admit. And I know he's a rookie, but there's something that they saw in you. Right? Somehow, something, told our team, our recruiters, our coaching staff that you are the next, whatever it is that you are. Right now, it doesn't seem to be a left guard. Okay? That's the point. I got to keep it real. I have to be honest about this, okay? So, obviously, the offensive line has to play better, with the exception of, obviously, Tristan Wirfs and Donovan Smith. These two guys continue to have phenomenal, games. But I will admit this, that there is one thing that the coaching is doing that is completely incorrect. Now, I understand that that Todd Bowles addressed this in the prior meeting that the Bucs had, the interview, I guess you could say, the coach's interview after practice the other day, and he said this. He said, we run the ball, or it was Byron Leftwich, my apologies, our offensive coordinator. He said, we will, call the plays based off of what we think is correct in that moment. I'm going to be completely honest with you, okay? I don't care what the moment was. You're deciding to run onto the left side, when on the right side you have Shaq Mason and Tristan. Explain to me why we are not running that way. Because when we did start running that way, what happened? Lenny started just dropping people left and right. He's trucking people left and right because people, seem to forget that, Lenny's not producing. Well, he's not producing because his offensive line is not producing. I mean, you really expecting him to be Barry Sanders in 2022? That's kind of that's a pipe dream, guys. Barry Sanders already did what he did. Defenses are alerted to that kind of thing. And don't get me wrong, Saquon Barkley is another ballgame, but that comes from his thinking. He's a different breed of football player than Barry was. Okay? And Barry, again, was accustomed to not having an offensive line, essentially. And I hate to say it like that for those guys who played for him, but look at the tape. You know what I'm saying? This guy became so comfortable at making people miss behind the line of scrimmage that it didn't matter where you were. Lenny can do that. The problem is the offensive line is better than what they're playing, and Tom is right when he was yelling at them about that. Do I condone it? Yeah, because that's what a leader should do. However, it has to translate, because when it doesn't translate, then people use the term Psycho Tom and yada, yada, yada. So, offensive line woes, Tom Brady woes when he's being pressured. A lot of people seem to want to put the blame on other outside sources when it really just comes down to the play calling, the execution. Okay, guys, there are a lot of teams that are playing with less packages, with less personnel, and less ability, and they're getting it done. Period. The end. There's no other way to say that part. So that leads to the final thing. Thoughts on how to be better moving forward. Okay? First things first. We got to find some durable people who can accept the responsibility of being reliable for Tom. That's the first thing, and that's both on the offensive line and in the receiving core, okay? Because obviously, we have had a lot of injuries, which we've literally been prone to the injury bug, if not the most in the NFL the last 2 years, just the last 2 years specifically. Look at the injuries. At one point last year, we had 11 starters injured. 11. I mean, you got teams that are uncomfortable with 4. You know? Why don't you triple that? You know, essentially. And here we are again, and who's out? Let's see, Akeem Hicks, injured. Julio Jones, injured. Logan Ryan, injured. Just had surgery. Like, these are stars. Cameron Brate, injured. You know, that's 4 right there. What's going on here? You know? And he's not, obviously, those aren't the only ones. Those are just the ones that I can't name off the dome. So, with that being said, there are a lot of problems going on. So obviously, we got to find some reliability. We got to stay healthy. Those are the first 2 things we got to do. The second thing we got to do is create a more dynamic game plan and then attack that game plan. When BA was our head coach, we risked it for the biscuit. And let me tell y'all something. We would not be, what are we, 3-3 right now? We would be more like 5-1 right now if BA was head coaching. Why? Because we would just be in better positions and then take advantage of some of the positions that we have put ourselves in to better out the situation as far as scoring or defense, whatever the case may be when you look at the course of these last 3 games. And the Steelers is no excuse. You know, there's no excuse for that. There's just no excuse for that. So obviously, you know, as I mentioned before, the Buccaneers are going to receive a roasting today. This has been, part of that roasting. And of course, you know, to wrap up what they can do to get better, the last thing besides, my bad. So we went over, so obviously they got to find reliable people and people that can stay healthy for Brady. The second thing is they have create a better dynamic game plan and execute the game plan promptly, right? The last thing they have to do, right, is stick to the fundamentals. On defense, tackling. All right? Tackling. Like, on the first guy, tackle. Okay? It shouldn't be, we need help, you know, or, 3, 4, 5 guys. Like, yeah, the gang tackling is good, and that's what you want to see, right? Everybody hustling to the football. But let's just call a spade again. Tackle. Fundamentally, wrap up, get the guy on the ground. Let's not miss tackles. Let's execute tackles, right? And then the second thing is let's focus. And the tackling is on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, we got to focus. There are so many drop passes. There are so many times where Tom's being pressured, where it's just getting to him a fraction of a second too early, and it's causing him to have to maneuver, or he's taking a sack. Whatever the case may be, we have to fix that. And the easiest way to fix that is to stay focused. Stay focused on the game plan. Just understand your job, your assignment, do it. Execute it. That's it. So, that's it as far as that's concerned. That's all I have for Tampa Bay, obviously, from the standpoint of what to expect to get better and what's been going on with them as far as that Steelers game is concerned. Real quick, on the Panthers next week. The Panthers, I don't think the Panthers are in a great space right now. Obviously, with everything that's going on, they're on their third starting quarterback in the last 3 years. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey just got traded. The young man Robbie Anderson got traded. They're missing half their team right now. It seems like from the production standpoint as to what we're used to seeing from them. And obviously, Christian McCaffrey was always the one thing that would hinder us as a Buccaneers team. There is no C-Mac anymore. So Bucs, guys, listen. This has to be the last time. Okay, this is the last time. All right, that's it. You gotta win this game. Not another stint like we had in the Steelers. No, I'm not holding on to it. I just want this to be a reference on how to get better. We're not going to do that again. All right, this week we're going to come out all guns blazing. All right, all the cylinders rotating, the whole 9 yards. All right, let's get it done. And let's get it done in the division game. Period. I don't care about anything else. Let's get it done. All right, guys. Let's go ahead and take another short break. When I get back, we'll go ahead and get ready to wrap everything up. We're going to talk a little bit of basketball, a little bit of lightning again. No Rays baseball. Rest in peace to the season for the Rays. So, but yeah, that's what's on the horn when we get back again. My name is Corey Pools, your host for Palm Tree Sports, brought to you by IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Lopan, they didn't even want you. Heck, they didn't even want me. But you know what? Right about now, they have no choice. Looking for the real sports talk? Talk that's for us, the people? Look no further. The Wait a Minute Show, a prime time sports comedy cocktail that tucks you in at night. Join me and Lopan Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 2livestewsradio.com and Saturday 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Wait a Minute Show.com. Sounds like a plan to me. Ain't that right, Lopan?
Indeed.
All right, everybody, welcome back to The Fold. It is me, your host for Palm Tree Sports, Corey Pools speaking, and this is brought to you by Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And we are on the last part of our segment for today, guys. Now, obviously, the meat and potatoes was handled earlier, but there is a little bit of progression in the hockey and basketball department for our channel. That's the good news here, and obviously we're going to be covering the Miami Heat and the Orlando Magic. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and talk about them a little bit. We'll save the Lightning for last because smallest bit. But for the Miami Heat, they started their season 0-2 so far. So, not the ideal start, especially for such a promising group that they have down there in South Miami. Obviously, with Butler and Tyler Hero and all those guys down there, they are going to be looking to rebound against the Raptors, who are 1-1 right now. They play tonight at 8. That'll probably be a good game, especially since these teams are accustomed to see each other both in the playoffs and in the regular season. Erik Spoelstra, head coach, is definitely going to be able to get a good inside look at how the Raptors are going to be playing today, and obviously with their team, they're going to be looking to try and bounce back, obviously starting in the 1-1 as well. So neither one of these teams in the best position for where they're at, but definitely looking for a win to right the ship here. And with that being said, the question for Miami is how long is their roster going to hold up? Obviously, you have a lot of young players there, right? But then you also have a couple players who've been dealing with a lot of injury, Bam Adebayo, and then obviously you have Jimmy Butler, who's been holding down the fort. And Jimmy, no matter where he's at, he's always been that guy trying to hold down to the fort. But I have to admit, now that he's settled into Miami, he definitely looks like he's in his best role yet. And I look for him to do great things for the Heat this year. I'm hoping that he can be that longevity piece needed. Tremendous defensive player, obviously, as you guys know. Great hustle on the ball. Same can be said for a lot of the roster. So like I said, let's go Miami. It's my favorite team as far as basketball is concerned in the state of Florida. I've always been a Miami fan since probably back D-Wade was he was, I can't remember his draft class, but I had to be like 10 years old. So when he got drafted, if I remember correctly, 10, 11 years old. So I want to say I've been a Miami fan since about then, because I actually went to school with his nephew. Wild story. We both went to Tampa Bay Tech, if I remember correctly. It was his nephew. And that was pretty cool, obviously. And they resemble each other, so that wasn't weird. The coolest thing, though, for Miami is that they're obviously going to get to play, in a lot more prime time, which they have been, obviously, in recent memory. But it's just like tonight, 8 o'clock game on a Saturday is going to be good, especially since UFC is already wrapped. We'll talk a little bit about that, too, just for a little egg in the bucket, if you will. But, no UFC tonight, no in-game Florida games tonight as far as college football is concerned. No baseball, right? So, everybody's going to be watching that game tonight, and I'm probably going to be watching it myself, to be honest with you. I would definitely want to see how both these teams out of the East are going to be playing. So, but with that being said, the Orlando Magic, same start, 0-2. Orlando's in a different area, though, right? Where Miami has proven themselves, made the playoffs the last couple of years, and they have been consistently making the playoffs under Erik Spoelstra even before that. It's just one of those things where you got to ask yourself that where's Miami's roster and where's it going to be in the near future, right? They've been in a rebuilding stage for a very long time. Last time they made the playoffs, LeBron was still in Cleveland, and I mean like the first stint in Cleveland. So it's one of those things, you ask the question, like, what's going on there? So, with that being said, we'll have to wait and see how Orlando's roster evolves in the time. It's not going to look good for them coming up into the Celtics right now. They're playing really good basketball despite all the controversy surrounding that team. Obviously, like I said, great, great roster there, and they're going to be playing good basketball. My apologies. So, Celtics, Magic, that game I'm probably not going to watch. Not necessarily going to witness a crucifixion this early in the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a blowout. So hopefully Orlando can get on the ball and start to determine who they're going to be in a franchise, especially with the rebuilding process taking as long as it's taking for them. Hopefully they can find some volume in this upcoming draft, especially now that they are as young as they are, because I don't recognize many of these ball players. It's funny, as I'm looking at their roster, I don't recognize many of these ball players, and what I mean by that is from a volume standpoint. I haven't seen them play much basketball. So, best of luck to Orlando, however speaking. If you get a win against the Celtics, that could be something to jumpstart you guys' season. And obviously, that's going to be done by one or two things. You're either going to play tremendous defense against a defensive team, and you're going to win the game late, right? Because we know that's what the Celtics bring to the table. They're a tremendous defensive team. And they have some guys that can, take a ball game over when necessary. And if you're going to stop them, that's the other thing you got to do, is take the ball game over yourself. A lot of people always ask that question, well, how can you stop somebody like that? Well, I'll tell you one of the ways that it was done before. I remember the first time I saw Michael get crossed up, and I mean bad, all right, and it was Allen Iverson. And I mean the first time from a standpoint, because obviously I was still a baby when he was still playing ball, but when you look at the tape, when you look at the highlight tape, and you see the way Allen Iverson crossed up Michael looked bewildered, slightly like, I have not seen that before. So with that being said, it can be done, and in one-on-one situations, you're just going to need guys to step up and be better than the guy across the street from them, right? That's what it comes down to, especially in a game of basketball like that, and especially in a team-based game where defense is going to be prominent and low-scoring games are going to be more so, fundamental to get out of than expected, right? So that's always a good thing there for Orlando, and what they can do against the Celtics. Now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and slide right into the Lightning. This is going to be a rematch against the Islanders, of course, who we played late last season. And I believe the Islanders were giving us a huge run for our money, and then we pulled the miraculous escape, came out of there with the victory in the playoffs. And with that being said, I don't know how confident I am right now in the Lightning, just because of purely how early the season it is. In the season it is. My apologies, I can't seem the English right now. But with that being said, we recently had a blowout loss against the Penguins. That one was ugly. I think it was 6-2. Not something you necessarily want to see on a regular basis. Obviously, that kind of score just, is a little scary to see. The Rays aren't playing baseball anymore, so I'm looking at the Bolts and I'm like, is that the Rays? Are you talking about the Rays? They lost 6-2. That's not Oh, that's the Lightning. Okay, got you. That's the Lightning. That was kind of my reaction to seeing that score. You know, I almost thought it was a different team completely. Now, with that being said, we also lost to the Flyers after that. I think that was a 3-2 loss, so a 1-goal loss, right? So those are, just like in baseball, run ball games, got to win those. Same thing in hockey. So if you guys would, you know, kind of translate, you know, from one to the other, it's one of those things where those teams who go deep into the playoffs and who win, right, the Stanley Cup, they are going to master winning those run games and winning in overtime. It's going to be one of the other things, like Montreal Canadiens in 93, right? You know, they're always 1-1 ball games. Same thing in hockey. You got to win those. You have to win those. With that being said, we did win the next one against the Panthers. I believe that one was a 1-goal ball game. So with that being said, you know, that's a win. That's, you know, not necessarily riding the ship exactly because we're 2-3 if I'm not mistaken. But we got the Islanders up next, like I said, and they're 2-2. So neither one of these teams looking too hot early on. Let's see if we could take advantage of some early season jitters, right, from the Islanders, and maybe squeak out a win here and build some confidence, right, because that's what's very necessary right now moving forward. Obviously, a lot of teams are getting back into hockey shape, getting back into the playing against another team shape, and those are always, no matter what sport you're playing, right, that's always one of the hardest things to do, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, soccer, tennis, hockey, whatever. So we definitely are going to hope that the Lightning can go ahead and figure themselves out first defensively, right? Because we're usually known for being a good defensive team. We have not been that early on in the season. Notably so, been going through some things, the hurricane, you know, all the changes here in South Florida. But with that being said, let's get back on the ball, get back to playing hockey the way we play hockey, which is sound defense, you know, strict scoring, and making sure that our playmakers have every opportunity to take these extra shots, send up power plays the whole 9 yards. And also, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot, right? So if we're going 6 on, no goalie, let's actually play defense, right? Let's hustle to the puck. Let's not just let these guys just still continue to be able to play their game, even though we have them outnumbered, right? Math is math. For all those who watch The Incredibles, math is math, okay? Now, that's it for the Lightning. For any of those who watch mixed martial arts, a little tidbit about myself, I study mixed martial arts. I practice martial arts myself, and I love it. So there was UFC event 280, and for those of you who did not find out yet, Charles Oliveira lost to Islam. Second round arm triangle, I believe it was, submission. You have to admit, seeing that just, wow, blew me, because all those who know that Charles Oliveira is one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the entire UFC, being submitted obviously is just wow. Just did not see that one coming. Controversy in the co-main event between Sugar Sean O'Malley and Peter Yan. I picked Sugar. The stats indicate something different than the way that the fight went. Sugar had the better striking, but it basically, like, Peter had better everything else. So you be the judge of that fight. You can kind of determine how that one went. And then obviously the last bit was the co-main event between Sterling and Dillashaw. I picked Dillashaw for the fight just because I thought he was a better athlete, but unfortunately that's not what happened, which doesn't bother me. Any good job to Aljamain Sterling for defending his title and obviously solidifying himself as a bona fide superstar and champion. So good for him. We'll see what happens next for the rest of those guys. But just want to touch on that for any of those who are missing out on that action, or, you know, at work, whatever the case may be. So there's that. Guys, we'll be back again same time, same day, same time next week, 6 p.m. Anybody who would love to have a chat with me or who would like to sit down and talk anything sports related, have any questions, hit me up on Twitter at Corey Pujols. I'm always there talking sports. You'll see it on my page as soon as you get there. I'm kind of acquainted a little bit with everything going on. Try to keep it modern, of course, you know, with the time, with what's going on with each sport with respect to the time frame. So, but with that being said, thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. Again, my name is Corey Pujols, your host for Palm Tree Sports, which is brought to you by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all the sports. Everybody have a wonderful day. NFL football is tomorrow. We'll talk about it again next week. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you and goodbye.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson. It's your boy Dentarius Law.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.